Buon everyone. Buon or should I say buon noche? My papiamento isn't really that great, despite living down on Curaçao for 2 years at least. My Dutch is even worse. So let's try this again. Buon noche, everyone. Uh, I hope everyone made it to the meeting okay. This is my first time actually doing one of these things, hosting a webinar on a Saturday evening by myself, setting up everything for the first time. And I've already had a glass of rum, so my apologies if I stray off topic. I want to keep this as interactive as much as possible, so you guys just get like a shout out, even though like I hate doing icebreakers, but can just get like at least like a wave or a hey or something, just to make sure that I'm not talking just to a some box. Hello. Excellent. Okay, so let me just get my bearings straight here. So what you've been listening to is just some music that just gets stuck in my head because of Curaçao. They play it a lot down there. Uh, they play a lot of Mark Anthony, I've discovered throughout the years. And what you were watching were just a collection of photos that I had taken mostly from my last trip last year, except for two. The picture that you had seen just before I started talking is of the floating bridge that connects the 2 points of Wodomstad together. Floating bridge because it is a bridge actually floats on pontoons and swings in and out whenever a boat has to go through the harbor. That was actually taken on my 2018 trip. And that's one of my favorite ones, even though like that shot's been taken a million times by so many tourists, I'm sure. But this is my shot. So just a little introduction before I begin the whole spiel and everything. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Khoa Dao. I am I wouldn't say a professional photographer, but an artistic photographer based over here in Chicago, Illinois, where it is going to be, what, 6 degrees tomorrow or something? So I hope everyone's keeping warm. I've been shooting since 2012 in a professional manner. And my specialty is street photography. But I actually started out photographing fencing. So that's how a lot of people know my work. They know my work through fencing. I have shot 6 weddings, even though I retired officially after the third wedding. So not too sure exactly how I got to 6 weddings after retiring after the third. But why Curacao? We'll get to that just in a bit here as soon as I actually figure out how to actually load up a PowerPoint. Unfortunately, I do not have a staff of IT Oompa Loompas to help me here. So doing everything on my own. Okay. Okay, I believe everyone should be able to see the first slide. Yes? Just getting it done. Okay, not great. First off, I wanted to apologize because even though my event description said that 50 or so photos, I had a hard time hitting 50. When I say hitting 50, I'm talking about going like the other end. So there's actually 80 photos in here, but not every photo is going to take a minute for me to talk. So we should be able to do this in an hour, and anyone else who wants to like stay for drinks after, well, more drinks afterwards, I more than welcome you too. So I call this 2020 trip a redemption trip for me because here's the background. I lived down in Curaçao for 2 years from 2006 to 2008. I was studying down there. And this was before I discovered photography as an art, even though I wouldn't say cheap, but I had a point and shoot camera with me that was 2 megapixels that cost my parents $500. So technically not a cheap camera, but I mean, for a 2 megapixel camera. And I just didn't really shoot much down there. It was mostly just like tourist shots, but like sometimes I see something and just thought, you know what, that'll make a good photo. So let me just take a photo of that. fast forward, I finally did discover photography, and it's like, holy crap, I live now in Ireland, and I didn't actually take that many good shots. So 2018, which was actually somewhat of a bad summer for me for various reasons. A friend of mine was actually going down to Curacao, and it just dawned on me that I made this promise to myself back in 2008 that I would return to the island. So in 2018, 10 years afterwards, it seemed like the appropriate time. So I kind of like pitched along, and yeah, made some good photos down there. That was somewhat of a mission for me, and that in itself was, I wouldn't say a redemptive trip as much as this one, but it was somewhat of a soul healing trip for me. And fast forward to just last year, what had happened in the summer of 2019 was that I had submitted a set of photographs from the 2018 trip to a gallery to present, and I got a provisional acceptance. But then I didn't hear from them for a few months. So come December, I asked them about it, and it turns out that they were heading in a different direction, and they pretty much retracted the provisional acceptance. How did I take this? Well, 3 weeks after I had found out about this and getting out of the hangover that I had suffered that night, a spark came to my mind. Like, I lived down in Curaçao for 2 years. I never actually saw Carnival. It is one of the biggest celebrations down there, and yet for some reason, like, I just never saw. Well, not for some reason. I was always studying. Carnival happened to coincide around when midterms were happening, so there was no way I could actually go out and actually observe any of that. So looking at the feasibility, looking at the calendar of when Carnival actually fell in 2020, and crap, it is on the tail end of the busy season in my day job. It's like, there's no way I could actually do this. But then the more I thought about it and figured, no, I have to do this. There's no way that I cannot go down there to actually photograph this year, especially after getting rejected by the gallery. So I was preparing to confront my bosses about it, and to my amazement, they were actually excited for me. So I planned this trip, and yeah, I pulled it off. I spent a week down there photographing the Carnival celebrations, and I came back and I came up with more photos than I would ever imagine possible. My goal was really just 11 photographs. I know that seems like an arbitrary number, but 11 is a prime number. I came back with 2,000 digital images, and I brought with me 10 rolls of Kodak Ektachrome slide film and 2 rolls of Tri-X black and white film, and they were all used up. So that's one reason why it took me some considerable time after 3 days ago deciding to actually put together this presentation to go through those photos and try to come up with 50. And as I said earlier, I failed. I came up with 80 photos, and that's just of Carnival, of the celebration. It doesn't include all the other photographs I actually made while down there. Nevertheless, here we are. So the photograph that you actually see here on the cover that I chose, this was one of the very few good photographs I actually made while living on down Curaçao, and this was around 2007, I want to say. And there was no intention at all to frame it the way how I did. It just seemed interesting. I just picked the camera up and just pointed it and just took a photograph. It wasn't until I started to actually looked at it a few years later. It's like, I actually divided that up just perfectly. We have here basically a gate to the sea. And what this made me realize, looking after it years ago, during my progression to becoming an artistic photographer, is just how important intent is. Because even though this might be a great photograph, I had mixed feelings about it because I did it by accident. It wasn't by intention. So it's a little mixed feelings about it. So as we start to go along here, do I have any questions from anyone? And I do have a tendency to ramble on and on. And you see, I do have my Cuban rum here, and it actually is Cuban rum. I didn't get this from Curacao. I got this from one of my best friends. So
I'm curious, can you tell us where the location is that you took this photo?
Yes, this photo was taken on the south south coast of Curacao on the east side. So it is a little bit east of Punda. Punda is the old town region of the capital. Um, so this was actually an abandoned mansion. There's a lot of abandoned houses along this stretch of road called Rivenstraat, which no, Rivenstraat is a parallel one. Pitamai is the street that actually goes along this, and there's a lot of abandoned houses there. And because of how Dutch law works, Curacao is a Dutch island, is under Dutch law. When it comes to property rights and property divestments, after someone dies, there's no such thing as, well, it's a little bit more complicated, but essentially, if there is property that hasn't been claimed in a sense, the government isn't going to go in and use it for whatever purposes. They're just going to leave it there because their laws dictate that that actually belongs to someone. They just don't know who. So there's a lot of abandoned houses that, down there. Wait, I think I just missed them. Give me 1 second here. Just need to exit off. Yeah, I am, again, like just doing this as a one-man band. So definitely someone let me know if I look like a cat, because I assure you I am not a cat. I'm a photographer. So I arrived on Thursday. Flight, let's see here. I think I took off at like 7 a.m. in the morning or something. Had a like delay down in Miami. Miami International is probably the worst airport in America. I'm just going to say this. Other people always want to say Atlanta. I say it's Miami for various reasons. But eventually I got down to Curacao, landed around what, 4 or something, 3 or 4 o'clock. And I proceeded to the hotel that I booked and everything. And yeah, my plan basically was just to like land on the island, rest up for the day, have dinner at night. The first parade I was going to photograph wasn't into Friday, but lo and behold, around, I can't remember if it was before or after dinner, this happened. A marching band was just parading around Punda. Now, I know usually on Thursday nights, Punda has something called Punda Nights. That's probably the most descriptive thing I've ever heard. But on Punda Nights, you would usually have musicians playing around this mojito shack, and people would just be dancing around. But because it's Carnival season, there was this band that was just marching around, snaking around the little corridors in town and everything. So that was a nice surprise. Of course, the first official parade I was going to photograph happened on Friday, and it was Teenagers Parade. There are several parades that happen. The very first one is actually the Kids Parade, and I had missed that because that occurred a week prior. So there is the Children's Parade, the Teeners Parade, then there's the Grand Parade, and then there is the Children's Farewell Parade, the Teeners Farewell Parade, and the Grand Farewell Parade. And that's the main parades. That doesn't include the parades, the smaller parades that happen on the west side of the island. Lots of parades. So the plan on Friday really was just to have dinner again. And because it was a Teeners Parade, I was down there mainly just to photograph the Grand Parade. But yeah, I figured, you know what, it'll be good practice. It'll be a good way for me to get my feet wet on this little mission. So the plan was for my friend and I to, and I have friends who actually live down in Curacao. And I also had a friend who accompanied me too. I'm not going to divulge her identity unless she wants me to, just for her privacy's sake. But now, we were supposed to have dinner at the Riff Fort, which is this little Spanish fort that has been converted into kind of like a touristy type of shopping center. but also with restaurants in there. And one of my friends actually owns a bar down there. So a little shout out here, even though she's not paying me for this little advertisement. Natasha is a friend of mine, and she owns a bar down at the fort called Sopranos. It is actually, it was a piano bar. Then she bought it out and converted it to a sports bar, but still has the Sopranos theme. So there are still photos of James Gandolfini, like just plastered around. Just kind of interesting. But yeah, I like showing off the fact that I actually have a friend who owns a bar. So the Tina Parade was supposed to start up in Santa Rosa, around, which is about 6 kilometers away. The start off point was a Pizza Hut. That's what the info stuff actually said. But it was scheduled for 3 o'clock, and for some reason in my mind, it just didn't click right. So I asked my friends around and said, like, it usually kicks off around 5 o'clock. So I had time to figure, you know what, it's 6 kilometers, which is short for a run, but for a march in a parade, it's going to take a while. So I figured, you know what, have time to have dinner. And we're watching this on the TVs that they actually have there. And 5 o'clock comes, it's like, there's nothing starting. 6 o'clock comes, there's still nothing. And that's when it dawned on me. There's a phenomenon down in Curaçao called island time. Island time can vary between like maybe an hour to 5 hours to when something is actually going to occur. And, you know, that's just the way of life down there. And you know what? It's a very stress-free life to some people. There's a time and place for it, but I feel like that would drive me nuts. I know someone who isn't even from the Caribbean or lives in the Caribbean, but he's pretty much on island time all the time. So I think some of you fencers who are watching right now know exactly who I'm talking about. So we're on island time, and we finally start to see something on TV around 7 o'clock, I believe. And that's only the midway point. So it's going to take a while before it actually gets over to town. And on this side, this is actually Atrabanda. Atrabanda is the western side of Willemstad. So the other side is Punda, that's the old town. Atrabanda is another descriptive term because it's papiamento for other side. So they named the other side of town Other Side. But no, what you have here are basically people just waiting for the Tina paraders to show up. And the funny thing is, when I told my companion about, like, you know, island time and everything, once I finally remembered it, I'm walking around and basically just hear other people around, complete strangers, talk about, oh, they're on island time. So it is as a known thing. Eventually, they showed up. And this is by intention. As I said earlier, my goal now as a photographer is to photograph with intent. There could be some happy little accidents sometimes, but for the most part, it's about like just being able to pick up the camera, look at something, and knowing when to press the shutter and when not to press the shutter. In this particular case, there was a specific effect that I want to get without having to Photoshop it, because I don't believe in Photoshop. This was shot on film. And the way how I got this effect was to use a flash. And it was something that I'm still learning the ins and outs of flash photography, because as a street photographer, I try to be as inconspicuous as possible. But it's something neat that I just want to be able to stop time and to freeze it in a moment, but also show the motion of time too. So 2 months prior to my trip down to Curaçao, I was practicing with a flash as much as I could. Burned through an entire roll of film doing it just to see exactly how it would actually show in film, because as you will see later in this photo set, how this translates to film is different to how it translates digitally. And that's one reason why I use both mediums. I'm not saying that one is better than the other. In a technical aspect, digital is better than film. But to me, on an aesthetic aspect, film is better. It's like the difference between driving a Lexus down Lakeshore Drive. Yeah, it's technically great. You're comfortable, but it's just not as fun as driving a 1960s Jaguar stick shift. And again, I was trying to go for a specific look. So to some people here, this could just be a random shot. I had planned this out. Like I knew this was happening. I saw this gap, but it was only like a fraction of a second. I knew I could actually take that photo. It's just because I had the connection sign in the background. I had this boy, this kid, just staring at me, and it just seems like everything just worked together, and that's what I strive for. By the way, I like to be very interactive because I hate being a talking head. So if you have questions, please stop me and just ask away. Verbally, of course, because I'm doing like a presentation screen here and I still have no idea what's going on with the pop-ups on Zoom. So there's no artistic merit to this photograph at all. It is purely a documentary photograph just because I do not know who is this more racist against. This is an actual logo for a fireworks company down there that was part of one of the sponsors for the parade. And yeah, as an Asian who believes that Black Lives Matter, and I have certain feelings, I just don't know if this actually, this photo is actually this trademark is actually the best logo to use. But yeah, I include this photo here not for the artistic aspect, but sometimes a photo serves other purposes. It's not just for the aesthetic arts, but it's for more so for a purely documentary sense. We'll revisit why this might be allowed down there in a bit, or like at least maybe it might not be as offensive down there. At least it all comes down to what our tastes are as a culture, at least. Sunday. So we skipped from Friday to Sunday for the fact that Saturday there were no big official parades around the main areas of Curaçao. There were some smaller parades happening over on the west side, but I decided that day, you know what, I just want to rest up. I'm tired. I'm still tired from the night before. I'm going to have a big day the following day. So, you know what, Saturday, I'm just going to explore the east side of the island for a bit. Let's take it easy, rest up, and just try to soak things in. Because even though, yes, this was a photographic expedition for me, there's still something about that. I get into, I wouldn't say arguments, but quarrels with people saying oh, how was your vacation? It wasn't a vacation for me. It was an expedition because I did have this mission. But at the same time, I've discovered that first off, I don't relax well. I'm not one to actually just sit around a beach and relax. Fun fact, while living down Curaçao for 2 years, I went to the beach a total of 3 times. Let that sink in for a bit. 3 times of living going to the beach while living there for 2 years. I just don't know how to relax like that. The way how I relax really is just by immersing myself in exploration or just pure chaos. But still, though, that island has a healing effect on me, and several times it has actually proved that I come back from it like just a different person. And that is why after this pandemic is over, I already plan on going back there for another trip just to heal from the effects of this pandemic. But no, Sunday, and that's Dutch for Sunday, was the Grand Parade, and that started around the afternoon. But again, we're on island time. So could just be a snapshot, but I am quite fond of whiskeys, even though Dewar's is a blended Scotch. I mean, it's good as a mixer, but for the fact that we're at a place where it is not uncommon at all to just walk around with a bottle of hard liquor, and this isn't even just contained to the Carnival season. This is just a normal thing. You can just see people walking around just drinking down there. It's kind of like Chicago during imagine Chicago on St. Patty's Day, but for a lot of days normally. But yeah, Dewar's, I will say though, it's probably not as bad as Scotch. Down in Curaçao, there is a brand of whiskey called Scotch. That's the label. That is the brand. It is Scotch. So it is Scotch. It is horrible, I might add. But no, the parade kicks off eventually. While I was with my companion. We hiked up to the midway point, so about 3 kilometers away from the end point over in Achabanda. And we kind of found this little spot. There's a lot of areas around the Carnival parade route. From what my friends told me is that years ago, they didn't put up any barriers or fences. People were just free just to wander around wherever. But over the years, it just got so troublesome trying to control the crowd and everything that they decided to finally put up these barriers just to make sure that for safety reasons, that there is a clear path for the paraders and for the large trucks and for the support floats that go by. And I say support floats because I rarely see this in America. This parade and this series of parades had special trucks that, first off, had a truck that had lights on it for night, so you'll see that in a bit. But they also had trailers that had food, drinks, provisions. They had carts. They had people with carts with water on it just to support the people in their group. So it's not just people walking in a parade. You also have people supporting the people walking the parade with the paraders. Now, I didn't include any of those photos on here just because, again, I'm trying to pare down a certain number of photos to show, and I felt like that would have just distracted away from the set a little bit. But that's how big these parades are. They actually have their own entire support team. To be fair, though, it's 85 degrees down there around this time, even though it's February. And did anyone hear that, or was that just me? Never mind. But yeah, it's 85 degrees down there, even in February around this time. It's a dry heat, but it's still hot. And as you will see in a bit, there's a reason why these paraders do need to stay hydrated. And this is the same band that was marching around Punda on Thursday night. So they were one of the headliners, well, one of the first to lead the parade. And again, it goes down to intent. It's all about framing. You'll see a lot of that in my work of how I try to use either different body parts or different objects to frame images in a sense. I like to play these geometrical tricks. This one, it's more so just because of the reaction. And then the colors too. The colors of Curaçao are blue and yellow. And this Carnival was actually the 50th anniversary. So there was a lot of patriotic Curaçao patriotism going on. Along this parade route, though, you see in the background over in the pink, there's an actual booth set up there. There are some people who traditionally have that spot. Now, on a normal day, that booth isn't there, that booth with the seats and everything, but during the Carnival season, they will actually put that up there. And I wouldn't say it is a Chicago equivalent of dibs, but you do not go there and sit in someone else's spot. But some people are not nice. The area where my companion and I were at this time was somewhat, there was a stand and some booths, and some places will actually have like these large scaffolding to do and to have like VIP type of parties there. But with these booths, the families own them. They bring them out every year to have to reserve their spot right there during the parade route. The people who were around my companion and I, though, were very nice. They actually like shared food with us. So they might be like holding on to that spot as it is, but they're also very nice people. So very welcoming. Then out from nowhere, a whole bunch of people who looked like they were going to do the running of the bull showed up. It was a whole gaggle of them. I later discovered they actually came from a ship, and they're actually Spanish or so. There is somewhat of a Spanish, historical Spanish and Dutch connection. I believe Spain actually had the Netherlands as their kingdom at one point in history. But apparently every year this ship comes to Curaçao just to have the people on it or like their group or whatever march in the parade. But what I like about this photo here is just the juxtaposition, because of I have no idea who that masked person is supposed to represent. Sometimes I could just read up about the history. Other times I just prefer to experience it. But with experience, I still have no idea what was going on here because there's just so much going on. This is to demonstrate that walls do not work. Fences and walls can be overcome. It was part of that Spanish group. But what made me snap this photo, believe it or not, is actually the colors. See the red, red, and red. There is a curvature of red, as you will, in that. With the man's shirt, her neck scarf, and her compatriots, companions in the background. The Dutch, the freaky deaky Dutch. Gotta love them. They're fun people. Very fun people, I will say. They're definitely partiers. I'm not entirely too sure why you have Dutch people dress up in a 1950s style of costuming in a Carnival parade, but hey, it's Curaçao, and that's one of the things I love about Curaçao is that it is really a melting pot. We say America is a melting pot. Curaçao is even more of a melting pot, as you will see here. Yes, Chinese people. There are Chinese people in the Caribbean. Curacao, the makeup of it, it's predominantly Afro-Carib because the unfortunate history of Curacao is that it was at one point a major slave trade post. There are currently oil fields over in the harbor right now, but those oil fields used to be encampments for slaves brought over to Africa. So that is a very unfortunate, tragic history of Curacao. But from that tragedy came this rich culture that occurred there. That these slaves, once they were freed, they were able to make a life there and pass it on to generation to generation. And there is a strong nationalistic sentiment down Curacao. You're not Dutch. You're not Afro-Carib. You are a Curaçaoian. So it's similar to how America could be, or at least the idealization, the ideal sense of America, and that it doesn't matter where we come from, what we look like, we're all Americans. But yeah, no, there are Chinese people down in Curacao. I've known this for years, but it's always kind of like, it always gives me a double take. What, huh? Whenever I see them. They mostly run what are called snacks. A snack down in Curacao is, I would say, it's a small little convenience store that also sells food and sells beer and sells a whole bunch of just different things. I would say it's like a very miniaturized 7-Eleven. But no, there is enough Asians down in Curacao to actually have an Asian association. So this group was actually part of one of those Asian business associations. I like to strive for surrealism in my photos sometimes. So it's real, and that's the thing about photography is that it's easy to pick up a camera and just take a snapshot of something, and it's real. But what I find challenging, and I enjoy the challenge, is being able to actually pick up a camera and do something different with it, like try to warp reality into something that is surreal. So hands, where are those hands coming from? Now, if you actually see, and this goes back to that logo for the fireworks company that I had discussed earlier, because of the integration down Curacao, there are actually a sizable number of people of Afro-Caribbean Asian descent. So going back to that image early on the side of the truck, I still question, is that offensive? It might not be offensive to them. My knee-jerk reaction is like, oh no, that's racist. But to them, I don't know. I haven't spoken to enough Afro Carib Asians down in Curacao to get their take on it. And I hope to be able to do that once the pandemic is over and go down there for my next healing trip. On the topic of controversies, this photo makes me uncomfortable, but at the same time, it's one of those situations where it's an uncomfortable photograph, but it's artistically, I like to use this as a good discussion piece on ethics in photography. One of my friends, she and I actually had a discussion about war photography a few weeks ago, about like the ethics of it, and she and I need to actually sit down once this pandemic is over in person and actually have a really good debate about this, because I would love to hear her insight on this and like how it compares with mine. I think we're on the same page though. But here, one of the groups that was next to my companion and I, there was this girl who was she was like the life of the party, and she was just standing up on one of the benches and just snapping, taking selfies around. She knew a lot of people too, apparently. But this kid that was there with them, he just kept on gazing at her behind. And for me, I took the photo just because he's the focus, even though the eye gets drawn towards the young ladies behind. But what it comes down here is like, should I have taken this photo? I still don't know, but you know what? I'm not going to second guess myself here and just say this could serve as a point, because there is a compelling story here to be said, but at what expense? So would I ever publish this in a book? Probably not. I'd like to use it more as an education purpose. But no, this person who's actually on the call right now, she and I are going to, I want to bring this up with her another time to see what her take on it is. But feathers, there were a lot of feathers. Of course, it's Carnival, and you know that's somewhat of the stereotypical imagery that you will see with Carnival parades are just these feathers. Rio de Janeiro and Brazil, where they probably have the biggest Carnival celebration. I'm not sure if it's actually canceled this year or not. As I mentioned in the description to this event, that this year's Carnival parade out in Curaçao has been canceled because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and that's why I'm doing this right now. But I don't know. Like sometimes I look at these photos like it's been done. Other people have done it, and one of the things I strive for in my photography is to take photos or make photos of things that others haven't. That's why I rarely take any photos of the sunset, because there's so many out there. And yet at the same time, I took a photo of that bridge, of the floating bridge at night, and there's so many photos out there too. But it's mine, so maybe it's okay. Maybe it's okay to actually take photos, make photos of things that are common already. But in this particular one too, I actually have a few before this where she's posing in front of me, because a lot of paraders are so used to this already that they will just stop when they see a camera. They'll just stop and pose. And yeah, I took a few of those, but like it's this one that actually makes me happy, just because it seems more natural. It seems like I'm a fly in a wall, you know, I'm not actually trying to be direct, because I make a horrible, I would make a horrible portrait photographer, I feel, because I can't stand telling people what to do, probably because I can't stand people telling me what to do. But it's how much can you actually be a fly on the wall though? You know, this is at a distance just because she is elevated on one of the floats there. And I think two of you on here could actually identify whether this is digital or film. And I mentioned this just because a little shout out to one of my friends who there's a backstory behind Ektachrome, but yeah, this was shot on Ektachrome film, and it has become one of my favorite films to shoot on, because it's the closest I will ever get to shooting Kodachrome, which no longer exists. It's all about the colors and the uncertainty of it. You know, with digital, I take the picture, I could just check to see if it's actually okay or not on the back of the screen. Negative film, I could take it. There's some latitude in what I could actually do. If I mess up the exposure, I could probably fix it. Slide film, that's you gotta hit it dead on. It it's so unforgiving that you actually have to make sure you know how to set the camera correctly. So again, it goes back to driving that 1960s Jaguar stick shift, just being able to know when to actually throw that gear in. Of course, sometimes you can't help but to actually be part of the scene itself of the photo. And you know what? Sometimes I love it because for me, the camera is my icebreaker. I abhor icebreakers, especially in meetings. But to me, the camera is, in a sense, an icebreaker because at least you know I'm there for a purpose. It's hard for me to come up to a stranger and say, "Hi, I'm Khoa. How are you?" But with the camera, I feel like I could just take the picture, smile, and then that's when I start a conversation, start to talk. But yeah, I just love the look of this man, especially with the sunglasses and all. It's interesting scene. But for me, what does it for me really are the actual are the umbrellas. It's odd for me to say that because you know there's a lot of muted colors here somewhere or like darker colors, but it's those umbrellas, those rainbow umbrellas, it just makes it pop a little bit. And another friend of mine, I keep on mentioning all my friends on here, just because my friends are my friends are who they shape who I am. Is my friends who I wouldn't be the person I am if it wasn't for my great cadre of friends. And one of my friends, um, even after I started photographing with intent and professionally, she was the one who actually opened up my eyes to color. So I took her on a photo walk once, and you know, I kept on noticing that she was like photographing just a whole bunch of colorful things, and that just made me realize, you know, I never really paid attention to it before, oddly enough. But you know, she would, you know, she's so in tune to color, and just made me realize, you know, I need to work on this as a skill to be able to actually identify colors and pick those out. So I'm very much more attuned to colors now because of this one friend. Uh, I my knee-jerk reaction to this is to say, well, that's a long one. But no, it's you know, angles matter in photography, especially when you're shooting with well, it's technically a wide angle lens at 35 millimeters, but it's my preferred focal length to shoot at. That might be a little bit more technical jargon for some people here. Now I try to stray away from that because it's the photos that matter, and you use whatever tools you have to make the photo that you want. And 35 millimeters just happens to allow me to make the photos I want. So it's in this particular case, it's I don't know. There's just something about poles that I find interesting. Don't read too much into that. But I do have to note something about technical aspects here. Just because if it wasn't for the type of cameras I was using, I would never be able to actually pull off the shot. So you can see the cameras I shoot with are in the background. I want to actually see the little picture-in-picture frame, or maybe you'll see it later once I finish the slideshow here. The type of cameras I use are called rangefinder type cameras, and what that in short means is that I see more of what's going to be outside of the picture than is actually going to be made. So when I look through the viewfinder here, I didn't even know that girl's face would have been there before using a rangefinder. If I use like a DSLR for this, it'll be hard for me to actually notice that, you know, outside the frame was his face as it was just coming in. But because I saw it was coming in, I just shifted the
Easy
camera over just
comes.
to be able to get her in there
Easy
also.
comes.
And it's this
Yes,
depth
yes.
that I really like to
Mhm.
get.
Hey, the person who's talking to their cat is not muted.
Was that a cat?
I think they were talking to a cat.
Oh, was it really a cat or was it a lawyer? Anyways, yeah. Sometimes it just gets down to like shooting those dramatic angles, and I stayed at this one spot for a few hours. Normally my modus operandum when it comes to like shooting is that I'm a run and gunning type of person. I will just dash around photographing wherever, but because of how condensed the parade viewing area was, there's no way that I was able to actually do that without losing my spot. So I just hunker down there and just try to shoot from like a hunting nest, so to speak. and just let everyone come to me. So that's why you see the same backgrounds. But there's a lot to be said about like just depth and framing in this one here too. But it's the eyes. Like I don't know about anyone else, but the first thing I saw when I noticed this frame was just like her eyes and how they're just kind of like framed by the feathers on her costume. And again, just going back on just this depth. I try not to crop as much as I can. I shoot and I try to retain as much in that frame then. And this one, I do not believe I actually did any cropping. That's just how it came out. Because I try to shoot with intention at the moment and to only just do minimum adjustments if necessary. So I have a lot of photos actually of the parade viewers themselves, but the focus in this photo really is just the paraders. Well, in this photo set. And I feel like this kind of like highlights that because sometimes photography is theater, and who's actually the focus of that? It's the actors on stage. So that's where the spotlight shines, not the audience. And two sets of photos here. So this actually reminded me while I was compiling this presentation the other night of what one of my friends who actually developed a few negatives for me during the pandemic. And she had noted how some of my negatives, she thought there was something wrong with my camera just because of how things were divided. It wasn't into, she actually looked closer and realized that that's just how I frame things. I like to divide up the scene. Again, it goes back to this whole surrealist aspect. And again, with these, they're very minimum cropping. And the only adjustments I make are just maybe just a little hint of brightness, just a little bit, just to fix it. But otherwise, I don't add anything to it. I don't Photoshop. So that shine of light on the girl's face, that was the sun just heading into that direction and everything. And the feathers, she's wearing them, but you can't see the actual harness and everything. So just the way how it's blocked, it just wondering what's going on. And on the image to the right, same truck, by the way. So it's like the front end and tail end of the truck. I didn't direct him to do that. That's just how he was standing. He saw my camera, but he just decided to pose right there. But it just so happens that one of the support carts that's handing out drinks to the paraders is in the background there, and that's red. And the guy on the truck is also wearing a red shirt, so it just all fit together. And goes back to this whole use of color, just paying attention to color that my one friend taught me so much to pay attention to. And of course, always goes back to surrealism, just being able to I have these pieces right there that I'm trying not to tell people where to stand. It's me just moving around slightly just to get them into those positions to take the photo. But at the same time, though, away from surrealism, sometimes I do just want to photograph to show the moment itself. That's actually how I started out with photographing fencing. It's really just me depicting the reality of the scene, but yet somehow, it's like when you freeze that moment in time, things look a little different just because the reality is that, our eyes are probably reading so much live, but our brain can't actually process it into afterwards. So that's one reason why I like to just photograph like these moments of reality right here. And this is one of these. This is the classic scene of it's a parade. We're there. There's people watching it. There are parade goers, but at the same time, how do you make this interesting? So in these two sets, it's about that depth. It's not just it's background, midground, foreground. Or in the case of the photo on the right, foreground, midground, and upper midground. So it's how do you play around with the geometry? And yeah, this is probably one of the few photos I have of the actual parade goers themselves, because it's interesting. I go down there to photograph Carnival and the paraders, and yet I find myself drawn towards the parade watchers sometimes. But at the same time, my intent really is it's a theater of it, it's a stage. The parade is a performance. You have these actors and the spotlight shines on them. And again, this goes back to what I was talking about earlier with my one friend looking at the negatives and wondering, like, is there something wrong with my camera? Because I like to use objects such as like light, lampposts sometimes, just to like break up the frame and to direct your eyes in certain areas. It's almost like compartmentalizing the photo itself. So if you notice on the frame on the left, the main focus here really is just geometry. White circles, circle, circle, orb. That's where I was going with. And on the right, it's faces. It's really just like that direction of the faces. Like where is the woman on the right looking at? It's all about that directionality. So I like to make sure I have like themes, certain things, certain elements in my photos. So at this point, we are reaching the rift fort, which is actually the end point of the parade route. You can see everyone's getting tired. It's been a long day. And it was at this point where I decided to actually use this media batch that I made, because I am part of the 80 Proof Photos Collective, even though we're only 3 members right now. But you know what? It's a credential. We are an organization, so it might not be certified by any like governing body. But you know what? I have this badge. We're at the end of parade, where the fence has like broken up enough where I'm not going to climb over it or anything, but there's like egress points where I can actually like just enter and exit. So I go in, try to get to the middle street, and one of the marshals sees me with my badge, asks where I'm from. I quickly tell her that I am with the 80 Proof Photos Collective. I'm from the United States. And she basically just starts like directing me to like, go photograph that person, go photograph that person over there. Oh, look at those feathers. Like she is just because she's become my photography aide, so to speak, my spotter. And that's one of the photos that she told me to actually photograph. Apparently they were friends or so. So like she wanted to make sure her friend was actually in frame. But yeah, you could see after 6 kilometers and 85-degree heat, people are tired. You don't see like that much exuberance at the end of the parade route as you do like in the midpoint. But you know, some of them are still happy. I like that. You know, I wish I had their level of energy. I mean, I do to a certain extent, but probably not as much as these young ladies do, especially the one sticking her tongue out. Because after 6 kilometers and she's still that happy. But going back to surrealism, so to speak. You know, like sometimes it's these imagery that makes you like kind of like look a little bit and just to try to figure out what's going on. And feathers always goes back to the feathers. Like again, it goes back to framing and all. Now this one I did crop. I will admit I cheated on this one. I actually cropped it down just because that's the main focus. I wasn't able to actually make it to that area fast enough to be able to get that shot that I want. It's faces. It's all about the faces. I feel sometimes. Sometimes no, sometimes yes. What I found particularly interesting is that there was this feathered theme going on, but by the end of the parade route, when the costumes and floats are being dismantled, that you have this head walking around. I saw it, and it's like walking past this palm tree. I figured, that could be a headdress in itself, right there. Of course, when the parade is over, who cleans up? It's like there's the beauty of the parade, but then there's also the aftermath too. So Monday, following day, after just being completely exhausted from from Sunday, I head back out and start to photograph the kids' farewell parade. That is representative of how I felt at this point. I was tired, and it seems a lot of the parade viewers were tired too. But they're so cute and adorable, and the costumes they're wearing are just so elaborate. We're talking about like these kids Now they're not walking the entire 6 kilometers. The kids parade is only 3 kilometers, but still, though, going through this effort of wearing all of that 85-degree heat, that is impressive. I went to my usual spot from the day before because I felt like that was trying to keep like maybe some consistency, just to highlight the differences in the actual paraders themselves. And cameras, of course. Like I feel like this could be a somewhat of a meta photography photo. Pictures of props of pictures. Pants. There's someone who's watching this presentation right now, and she knows exactly why I have this up here. There's an in-joke, but even without an in-joke, I think there's enough here to just makes you like just stare at that and just go, huh? Like, why are they just pants just stapled onto the side of a float? Well, it's actually a support float, so it's one of the support floats. On different support float, but faces. I just see these faces. I'm very sure that young girl is very tired, so that's why she's on that support float. Just didn't walk anymore. It's all about the colors. And there's always like it doesn't matter what. There's always that kid who just lags behind. Who's just like all of his friends have like dashed off, and he's just trying to catch up. So we get to Thursday. I missed out on the Teeners farewell parade just because I believe I just want to go and visit my friend Natasha at her bar over at Sopranos just to have a drink, because at this point I was tired. And to be fair, I've gotten so many photos already from the Grand Parade that I figure I'm good. I'm set to go here. So the Grand Parade that was on Sunday started in the afternoon, afternoon island time, so late afternoon. The Grand Farewell Parade was supposed to start around sunset. Clearly, it started after sunset. But people were lit. Like everyone had so much more energy than I felt like they should. Everyone's just dancing around. So you have this gentleman who's just dancing in the streets. But yeah, before the parade actually starts, everyone's just wandering around the main street, the main drag of at one it turns a certain point. So the one point it's Brita Strats. I'm not sure which part this actually is. So I made my way up. Actually, I coordinated with a friend of mine I met down in while I was living down there. MJ, she's the one seated in the middle here. Her brother is on the right and her friend is on the left. She's an artist, and it turns out her house is just on the parade route. So every year she always has this fantastic view that's elevated, and she just sees everything. So I was able to coordinate with her during this trip, and actually made out to just mainly just to say hey. But she's over at this point of the parade route, so might as well just like camp out there for a little bit and catch up. But of course, going to my whole run and gun style, I only stayed there for maybe half an hour before like I saw something, I just stashed off. I'm kind of like a beagle in a sense where I see something, I get distracted, I just run off, towards it. But at this point, again, as I said earlier, I've made so many great photographs that this was just me being greedy. I just wanted to, just take more photos of whatever I could. And yeah, because of that, at this point in time too, I felt that it was okay for me just to like hang back, relax, and just do a little treatment for my own soul. Even though again, this was an expedition, not a vacation, but we heal in different ways. So I'm photographing people, and then I'm walking slowly down the parade procession in the direction that the paraders are going, and then I see a snack pop in, grab an Amstel Bright, drink. And Amstel Bright it's a Caribbean version of Amstel. It's made specifically for the Caribbean, so it's supposed to be a thirst quencher. I think it's a little watered down. It probably is watered down, so it's very easy to just drink down as opposed to like some other beers I'm used to. But every time I saw a snack, popped in, drank one, moved on, photographed, saw another snack, bought another Amstel, drank, and then proceeded along. I think my photos kind of reflect that too a little bit, but at this point. But I also still had a roll of Ektachrome and one roll of Tri-X left, and there was no way I was returning home without actually with any unused frame. So I made a point then just to make sure that I shot everything, but no, not just shoot it, but make sure I shoot it well. So this was actually shot on Ektachrome slide film, which to any photographers out there know is ISO 100. So I shot this at night at ISO 100. Of course, I used a flash clearly, but it's just dialing all that down to be able to actually get that shot on my head after, at this point, maybe 4 bottles of Amstel. I'm gonna say that was probably 5 bottles of Amstel at this point, and I still was able to actually get that. And for those of you, I know we have passed the 9 o'clock mark. There's only 20 frames left, so don't worry. Colors. It all goes back to colors. And I'm just going to reveal her identity right now, just give her credit. Anna Maria. She is the one who actually made me pay attention to colors when I photograph now. So even though like I've been doing a lot of black and white photography lately with Tri-X, there's been a few moments, even with the pandemic, where I'm out socially distancing and I see something. It's like, oh, why do I have black and white film in here? Because that would have been like so good on color. But that's probably what it is too. Like I'm trying to force myself to go back to look at geometry and not rely so much on color. But it's so good, and I have Anna Maria to thank for that. Again, it just goes back to colors, and good for him for wearing that in that heat. Even though like it's dark out, it's still pretty bloody hot. And yet he's wearing basically fur. Why is my rum not pouring out? All right, there we go. By the way, the inspiration for me to actually drink here has nothing to do with my high functioning alcoholism. It's actually, I was inspired by Shakespeare. There's several theater troupes who will drink beer during a Shakespeare performance. And apparently it actually makes a performance look better. So. Party at the laundromat. One of the most random areas to actually have like a party, but it just so happens the laundromat here had apartments upstairs with a balcony, so like that's where the party is at. Party at the laundromat. So I was able to get the shot on top of a bridge before the police came and shoot everyone away, because they were trying to keep the bridges clear, because it is a safety hazard to have so many people leaning over to look at the parade procession. But Happy Peanuts, I don't remember why that truck says Happy Peanuts. It was probably like a brand or something down there. And no, it's a party. That's what Carnival is. It is a massive party before the Lent season begins. Carnival is the Caribbean and the American Latino version of Latin American version of Mardi Gras. So we know it as Mardi Gras here because of New Orleans, but no, it's Carnival down there. And everyone's just dancing. At this point, we're probably close to midnight or so. So this shot, I don't remember whether I actually intended to have a security guard in frame or not, because again, at this point, I'm probably 7 Amstel Brights in for the night. But I looked at it and I experimented with cropping, and if I cropped out the security guard, it just didn't work. I needed him in there just to stare. It goes back to the controversial image earlier of that young boy staring at the behind of that lady. It's like a commentary on the male on this gaze, so to speak. And to be fair, I just like the aesthetics of this because I'm proud of the fact I was able to shoot this on film. objectively, I don't think it's a good photograph, but aesthetically, I think it is. And of course, paraders are tired. I don't blame them. They've been like just partying for an entire week now. So yeah, these paraders that actually broke off from their main group just to like walk home, just to go home, just because they just didn't want to walk the rest of the stretch. So this one, if you look closely at her ears, it almost looks like her compatriots' faces are just like it looks like she's wearing her comrades as earrings. So that's what got me on this one. The colors, the feathers, yeah, but it's really for the fact that actually looking close enough, you actually see their two faces, like they're just flanking her ears. And going back to surrealism, it's just like I'm shooting at a low shutter speed here. Even this is digital, and I'm shooting at ISO 6400, and yet I still had to shoot at a low shutter speed, wide open aperture, just because of how dark it is at certain points without the use of a flash. And it worked out just because you have this parader just throwing, I think it's a sash or something, but it just covers up her face. So like you have like this sharp image of the gentleman behind, and yet you just have this blurring effect. No manipulation there. It's a satisfaction to me. It's even though someone looking at a photo might not get it, but when I see it, it's like I'm proud of that because I made that just the way it is. It's kind of like parents at a softball game. Like their kids might be crap, but you know what? You're proud of them. So it's the eyes that does it for me in this one. It's just the faces. It's a sea of faces. And it's I I wish I could get over my hang up of telling people how to pose, because I wish I could make more photos like this. This was natural. She was just adjusting her head design or so. And I just knew at that moment just to frame it. And like there was this conversation going on in the background. It's almost like when you watch some scenes of a Steven Spielberg movie, there are moments in his movies where you have multiple conversations happening on top of one another. And I kind of equate that to that's kind of like this with photography. Like I like to have different moments that are happening here because it goes back to the depth. You have this operator who's adjusting her headset. Back on the right, there's something going on there. They're having some sort of conversation. And on the left, you have this guy who sees me, and I guess the operator behind him is checking her phone. It's all these different things, these layering. And this is when probably Amstel number 8 or so, and I decided to experiment. I had already gotten my photographs of shutter dragging from the Tina parade back on Thursday. I didn't know at the time it was going to be on film. I knew I had some on digital, and I felt like that would have been enough. But you know what? Let me just go all in on this and just try to do whatever I can. And so I did. And this is on digital, but the way how it just came out, I feel like this is a reflection to how I was feeling at that moment. Several Amstel brights in. It's finally starting to kick in. It's late at night. I am tired. Somehow I managed to actually stick the flash on my camera and set it in a way to be able to actually to get this ethereal hazy dream image. And I found out I got out hipstered. I thought walking around with a 1960 Leica was bad enough. No, down on Curaçao, there was this guy with a tripod on the side with a field camera. I can't be too sure here if I know he told me. I probably just forgot. It was either shooting 4x5 plates or something a little bit bigger. It was slightly bigger than medium format. I know I have someone on here who actually shoots medium format, so maybe she could be she could tell me what what format that actually is, but no, like you have this guy who's basically shooting like one plate at a time. So he actually has like a set of actual plates that he's like inserting in and out of that camera as he's shooting. So he has to be very deliberate here. And also, I feel like completely inadequate. The fact I could bring 12 rolls of film with me with the hopes of just getting like 11 frames, and you have this guy who's just shooting one frame at a time with maybe like just a set of like 10 or so. So yeah, I got out hipster down Curaçao. Just these scenes. I used to avoid flash again, just being a street photographer. I just didn't want to like annoy people with it and everything. But in this sense, I felt safe enough to do it, and it just really just made the scene pop. Without that flash on my camera, there's no way I would be able to make something like this. It just looked like this, and I suppose there's a time and a place for everything. So what does it for me with this photo really is just a woman drinking out of a straw like that. You know, there's a lot of attitude there. I want to be her friend. You know, that's how I feel. And you know, the scene. This is one of my favorite photos actually of my entire trip. You don't see any like feathered paraders or anything. Anyone in costume. You have one of the DJ floats. So the DJ floats usually have like the lights to light up the parade goers and everything, and just playing just blasting loud music, whether it's merengue or salsa or reggaeton. They're just playing all these music and everything. But it's like at this moment, like I'm standing on one of the benches, and I'm not even too sure like how I managed to actually get this photo, but like I just put over the frame, and I didn't even know that they were kissing. I just saw in the actual viewfinder itself that was happening, and then I just took the shot. But it's almost like it's my version of the famous victory in Japan Day photo of was it Alfred I can't remember his name right now, but there's a photo of the sailor kissing the nurse. There's some controversy behind that one too, but you know that is somewhat of a famous photograph now, and I feel like this is my version of that. Like in the middle of all the celebration, you have this going on, this moment. Feathers. I got battered by a headset of feathers just to be able to get this shot. Just I don't know what came over me. It's like I'm standing in the middle of the street. They're coming down, like this plumage of feathers is coming. And it's like, you know what? That might make a good shot. Let me just frame it. Took the shot, and all of a sudden I'm just completely assailed and battered by this plumage. And here it's the eyes. It's all about the eyes here, the directionality of it. By the end of the night, it's probably like past midnight at this point. Like everyone's just, even though like we're at the harbor front, we're nearing the Rift Fort, we're over in Brion Plain Plaza, which is like the main town square. It's near the end of the parade route. And the paraders, despite walking for 6 kilometers, like a slow walk too, which is more, in my opinion, a slow walk is more tiring than running 6 kilometers. But they're still dancing. This guy has underwear on that on the banner says "on that ass." It just seems also appropriate. And then of course you have the people in the background just wondering what the crap is going on. So it's not a sharp photo, but one of my favorite photographers, Henri Cartier-Bresson, was noted to say that sharpness is a bourgeois concept. A sharp photo does not make a good photograph. It's what the photograph actually shows that makes a good photograph. And going back, this is what Carnival really is. It is just a massive weeks-long party. Because the following day, Curaçao being 70% Catholic, we're going to have for 40 days. We're just got to bunker down and not eat meat for on Fridays. I know there's more history behind that, and no offense to anyone who's Catholic. I'm Catholic myself, and I'm practicing one. Well, what's I say? Unfortunately, but I'm a non-practicing Catholic. It is what it is. Apparently we still find a reason to party it up, even though we just had to sacrifice meat for one day a week for 40 days. And this closes my presentation here. And I like to close out with like two of my favorite quotes. Travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness. Mark Twain went on further to berate people who didn't travel, but I figured, this is just, let's just stop it there. I feel that Curaçao is really enforced like the second quotation to me: life is once, forever. It's like how my photography is. There's no going back. I could go back and try to recreate that event, but it's not going to be the same. So like the moment I snap that photo, that's it. There's no going back. I can't tell the operator, oh, can you just like step back for a meter and do exactly what he did again? No, it's a different moment. But like that's just life in general. Life is once, forever. So I thank you very much for listening to me as I drink my rum and yammer on about my experience, part of my experience on Curaçao last year around this time. The parades might not be happening this year, but I'm glad to see like at least like a cadre of people have gotten together just to be able to share some of that experience. So I thank you very much for that. You can find more of my work in my main website at kdao.photography. My website is an ongoing thing on my task list to actually update. Photographers are notorious for not updating their main websites as much as the social media. But you can also find me on Instagram at kdaophotography.com. And I blog over at 80 Proof Photos, which, as I mentioned earlier, is an artist collective. So with that, I go back to video here, to main video, and now's our time to ask me questions.